Welcome to the Eduleadership Show. I'm your host, Justin Bader, and in this episode, we'll talk about whether smartphones and social media are to blame for falling test scores. We'll talk about how critical thinking is domain-specific and not a general-purpose and teachable cognitive skill. And we'll take a look at how British teacher and funny guy Mr. Firth says about what it would be like if teachers talked about writing lesson plans like musicians talked about writing songs. Let's get to it. First up, in a recent article in Education Week, Martin West of the Harvard Graduate School of Education argues that smartphones are one unproven but obvious and likely culprit in falling NAEP scores, especially for the lowest performing students. And I'm seeing this argument from a lot of quarters, and I find it very compelling. If you've seen Jonathan Haidt's book, The Anxious Generation, you've seen the evidence and you've seen his argument that smartphones are indeed to blame, not only for falling test scores, but for rising anxiety and other mental health issues, and certainly for just a host of problems in and beyond schools. What I think is interesting about West's article is that he cites some NAEP data that's broken down by performance decile. And as you can see in graphs like this one, this is reading, but math is similar. As you can see, the highest performing students are continuing to do well. There have been some ups and downs, but the general trend is slightly upward for the highest performing students. And of course, those would be the students who tend to be a little bit more affluent and who are maybe protected from some of the risks of excessive smartphone use. But look at the red line at the bottom. That line is definitely trending down, and it represents the lowest 10% of students in terms of academic performance. The lowest performing students are doing worse, and West argues, I think convincingly, that that is due to excessive smartphone usage. And we'll continue talking about that issue here on this show and different perspectives on the problem of excessive technology use and what we can do to protect our children from it. Certainly, we've discussed smartphone bans during the school day, and we've talked about reducing technology usage to just the things that it is actually good for, and not having students on devices all day during school so that they can socialize, so that they can learn the old-fashioned way and continue to derive benefit from their education. I think we also need to think about the parenting side. And of course, as educators, we have a limited ability to determine what goes on in students' homes and what they do with technology outside of school. But I think the evidence is mounting that we need to take this seriously, that there is an undeniable impact of technology use on lots of measures of student well-being. Next up, let's take a look at a video that was just released about a book that came out earlier this year called Developing Curriculum for Deep Thinking, The Knowledge Revival. And this book was co-authored and published for free by a host of luminaries in our profession. And there is now a new video out in which the authors are interviewed and asked to speak to the importance of knowledge. The whole video is about 30 minutes and it's worth watching, but I wanted to share just a clip from Wiliam.
As we move more and more into a knowledge economy, people have talked about the importance of complex cognitive skills like creativity, critical thinking, problem solving, collaboration and communication. And because these skills are important, people want to develop them. And one of the things that we've been told repeatedly is we need to get students to think critically. We need to teach critical thinking. And it's a really persuasive idea, because if you ask historians to describe what they mean by critical thinking and ask mathematicians to say what they mean by critical thinking, they say very similar things. So it's tempting to believe that critical thinking is a single skill applied in different contexts. But it turns out to be incorrect. It turns out to be no amount of training people to think critically in history has any impact on their ability to think critically in mathematics, because these skills are discipline dependent. They look similar. When we talk about them, they sound similar, but they are superficially similar skills that rely on fundamentally different cognitive processes. So if you want students to think critically in history, you have to teach it in history. And if you want students to think critically in mathematics, you have to teach it in mathematics.
So what does that mean for us as educators? I think one implication is that we should not try to teach general critical thinking skills. We should not have a critical thinking class. We should not act as if there is some methodology that we can use to develop critical thinking in general. Instead, we should strive to develop students' critical thinking in specific subject areas, in specific disciplines. And I think a good metaphor for understanding why it is the way it is muscle memory. Think about muscle memory. No one would say we need to develop students' muscle memory and just leave it at that. Everybody understands intuitively that muscle memory is specific. If you are a chef, you have the muscle memory to use a chef's knife to chop vegetables. And if you practice chopping vegetables or peeling potatoes, that muscle memory is not transferable. It doesn't make your golf swing better to be good at peeling potatoes. And I think critical thinking is the same way, that it is domain specific, and it requires that we develop deep knowledge and expertise in a domain in order to think critically about that domain. Let me know what you think. Lastly, I wanted to share a fun video from British teacher Mr. Firth on what it would be like if teachers talked about their lesson plans and the process of writing their lesson plans like musicians talk about writing songs. Enjoy.
Yeah, that lesson was written in 20 minutes on a Sunday night. But you know, it came from the heart. I knew I wanted something raw, something honest, fractions, but with that edge, you know.
What was the inspiration?
I'd been through a tough time personally. Sorry. We'd just run out of glue sticks the week before, and I just kind of said to myself, look, this is it. This is the headspace to really, you know, write that lesson that you've said you always wanted to write about. I didn't want to overproduce it. It's your basic progression, you know, starter, 3 questions, a plenary, really stripped back, authentic.
Some people are calling it your best work yet. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, look, I don't plan these for the fame. You know, I plan them for the kids. If Ofsted like it, then cool. But this one was always for year 2. We thought about making it, you know, cross-curricular, but in the end, yeah, we stripped it back, kept it pure, you know, just pure maths.
Did you differentiate it?
It differentiated me. Sometimes you don't choose the lesson, you know, the lesson chooses you. Every lesson has a story, you know, and this one, on the face of it, was about equivalent fractions, but I think it was about healing.
Love it. So you can find Mr. Firth on TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter, and we'll put links to his profiles in the show notes. This episode of the Eduleadership Show is brought to you by Repertoire, the professional writing app for instructional leaders. And I developed Repertoire to make it easier to get your observations and any other kind of professional writing done with a focus on the actual writing, the actual words. And we have some powerful AI integrations so that you can use your own language, use your own vocabulary, and write for your context in your writing task, but have it supercharged by AI. And one feature that I'm especially excited about this school year is the ability to take handwritten notes and transcribe the text from them. So you can simply take a photo of your handwritten notes and they'll get saved to your database, saved to a spreadsheet, so that you can have them all in one place. So check that out at principalcenter.com/repertoire. We have a 14-day free trial, and you can learn all about how Repertoire can save you time at principalcenter.com/repertoire. That's it for this episode. I'm Justin Bader, and I'll see you next time on the Eduleadership Show.